child, did you ever do something that you knew was wrong, so you hid? Found somewhere in your house or outside to hide from your parents? Or as a parent, did you ever find the remnants of something you knew your child was into, but you couldn't find the child? So what drives you to hide? Well, one, you're afraid. You're afraid you're going to get in trouble, but also it can be shame. More than once when I've caught up with a child, they just start to weep in your arms just because they're ashamed of what they did. I'm Jeff Long, and this is a podcast of distinct people, distinct time, and I want to further consider a text I recently preached, Colossians 1, 21 and 22. It says, "And you were once alienated and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds. He has now reconciled in his body of flesh by his death in order to present you holy and blameless and above reproach before him." The word alienated means estranged or separated. Now, to try to understand this, I'm going to go back to the very beginning of the Bible. In Genesis chapter 3, we have the record of the fall, the first sin, Adam and Eve. They eat of the fruit. If you get to verse 7 in Genesis 3, it says this, "Then the eyes of both," that's Adam and Eve, "were opened, and they knew they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees and of the garden. But the Lord God called out to the man and said to him, 'Where are you?' And he said, 'I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. I hid myself.'" So those two things were driving Adam. He was afraid of what he had done wrong, and Eve, afraid of what they'd done wrong, and they were ashamed. That's the implication of noticing they're naked. They're ashamed, so they hid. Now, question, is that alienation? The answer is no. We haven't gotten to alienation yet. Alienation does not happen until the end of chapter 3, and here's what's crucial in our minds. Who establishes the alienation? Listen carefully. Genesis 3:24. "He," that is God, "drove out the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden, he placed a cherubim and a flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life." God established the alienation, the separation from holy God and fellowship with God. Now, let's go back to Colossians and reread what's said. "And you who were once alienated, separated, and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds, he has now reconciled in his body of flesh in order to present you holy and blameless and above reproach." He is now reconciled. Reconciliation means that through Christ's death, he has overcome our separation from God and brought us back into fellowship with him. He did this in his body of flesh. That Christ came to this earth, died in our place on the cross. 3 days later, he rose again. On the cross, he established peace with God as the offering who took our sin, who took the punishment of our sin. But it wasn't just to forgive us. He forgives us. It is in order, according to this text, it is in order to present you. That is, to put you back into the presence of God now and for eternity, to present you holy, blameless, and above reproach, set apart, holy, dedicated to God, blameless, without defect, and above reproach, without accusation. So when alienation has been overcome by the reconciling work of God through Christ to bring us back into fellowship, back into relationship with him, that which was once barring us from the presence of God has now been removed. And Because of that, we are presented holy, blameless, and above reproach. So not only are we not alienated, brothers and sisters, let's go back to the garden. I now have no reason to be ashamed, and I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to fear with God. And therefore, I don't need to hide. Here's why. Verse 13 of Colossians 1. Because he has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. We've gone from darkness to light. We don't hide in the dark anymore. We've come out into the light. And this is only through Christ. So if you're a Christian, you have no reason to hide. If you're not, look to Christ, trust in him so you no longer have to hide, and so that you can come into the presence of God and know him the way that you are known. Thank you.